Hello everyone, how you guys doing? Hopefully you're having a wonderful day. We are back again with another PWCC weekly review where I go through the top 100 soccer items auctioned off this week on the PWCC website. As always, if you enjoy the video, if you enjoy the channel, do make sure to leave a like. Helps me out a ton, would appreciate it greatly. But with that said, let's go ahead and get into it. So this week we are starting off at what is $170, which comparatively to some of the weeks past is a pretty good week, I would say. A lot of fun ones, so we'll just go ahead and dig into it. Starting off, we have a 62 Pele that I see a fair bit in a PSA 1 going for 168. Sticker auto R9 along with a red wave Neymar. Above that, we have first of a few trebles we'll see this week. This was a Sergio Busquets gold PSA 9. I actually, I looked it up this week. I tried to look up some trebles and Topps Chrome. I know the people clamor for it. Unsurprisingly enough, this one has tried to sell now twice in the last couple months, and this would be presumably the third time. Before this, it sold for $348, and then $324 after that, and then this one goes for $180. So, I mean, seems like a decent discount from the last two. Again, I try to show them, I want to show them, or at least sometimes I do, and even when I do want to show them, it's brutal. When half the time you see something get sold or a set get sold and they just go unpaid, how am I supposed to even trust the comps that maybe do get paid? I mean, it's literally a coin toss to me. So again, prime example why I'm just annoyed with it. Keeping it moving, this is a Manuel Neuer sticker rookie that went for $186, signed and authenticated by Beckett. Actually looked it up and I didn't check that this was the same cert, but I'm just going to assume it is. It's blue ink, it's Beckett, so I mean, it looks exactly the same. Went for $204 before, $186 this time, which over, 2 years almost, one of which Neuer was out injured, and that doesn't seem too bad at all to basically go near the same in a soccer landscape that's probably fallen a little bit since then, but hasn't done too bad, I would say. There's sort of a lot of good signs in this auction in just the last few months. I've neglected to really, buy into it because I just don't want to until there's more evidence, but we're slowly getting there. 2002 R9 World Cup win a year goes for $186 in a PSA 10. This is a blue back. There are different backs, different locations they're released, so if you want to collect them all, that going to be a little bit of a challenge, but still a decent price there at $200. Moving on up, we have a Ryan Giggs 92 PSA 10 that goes for $186. This Beckenbauer seemed like a pretty decent price, I would say, considering we've seen PSA 1s go for like $50-$60 lately, so PSA 2 going for $186 isn't too bad. It's got pretty good color, but it's pretty beaten up as well. The 63 San Giorgio Lev Yashin goes for $186 in a PSA 3. I will say, some San Giorgios I see get rerun. I don't know if this will be one of them, but this actually was a pretty good price. The last one to sell was, I believe, one that I bought that was a PSA 3.5 for like $120. So this sale made me feel pretty good about the 3.5 purchase that I made, but I guess, we'll probably need at least another couple weeks to know that that's for sure. This is a really beautiful San Giorgio in my opinion. I think the set in general looks really good, which is why I sort of focused on it, but this one in particular just looks so good with that blue kit, yellow background, just a nice little pose there. Next we have a 2021 Topps Now Benzema, Lewandowski, Ronaldo, and Messi. This is, I don't know, probably some Champions League gear or something, but goes for $192, which isn't that crazy, but at the same time, I mean, it's Topps Now, so it's sort of to be expected. We have a 54 Puskás rookie. Well, it says rookie, not really rookie at all, but you get the idea. High grade, early-ish card for Puskás goes for $192 in Action Shot. This Hummels PSA 9 goes for $198. I did look this one up. This one, actually, we haven't seen get relisted, which is good. Only issue would be the PSA 10 before that got relisted twice at least. We haven't seen it go again, but we'll see. Nonetheless, this PSA 10 went for $395, $263, and $455. All in all, if assuming none of those got paid, I don't know why the last one, which is the highest, would get paid. Maybe someone just wasn't there watching the first two. I don't know, but I do find it weird that this is going for $200 when presumably one didn't get paid at $263. So it's interesting. I don't know what to make of it, but is what it is. We have a bottle cap Messi PSA 8 going for $200. We have a Neeskens 7071. I don't think I've seen this too often. PSA 3, so yeah, I mean, pop one of one, just one higher must be decently rare, and I do believe this is rookie year for him, so 198 there is pretty cool. Doesn't have rookie in the title, but that's just my memory. 2022 Dennis Bergkamp Prism Premier League breakaway signature goes for $204. 9.5 Buffon goes for 200. We saw Neuer last week go for 150-ish in a PSA 9, so that's, comparable. We have a Xavi PSA 6 that goes for 200. Pretty low price, but not one of the best grades you're going to see for this. Is pretty mid-grade. In my opinion, biased opinion, because I owned a signed version of this, but I do think it's the best looking Xavi at least. It might just be the best Xavi rookie in general. I know there's a more rare one, but this set just looks so good. There's a Zidane, there's an R9 in it. Those look amazing as well. I just think it's a really, really nice look, and definitely sort of invokes some 90s nostalgia for me. 92, 93 Zidane here in a PSA 5 goes for 200. Above that, we have a Paulo Rossi PSA 4 for 200. We have a 71 Eusebio Authentic for 200. And then the first go through this, I didn't even recognize, but there's a Bruguera that goes for 200 and a PSA 1. We'll talk about a different Zara Bruguera that went later in the auction. I think we'll see the comp on this maybe in that same listing, so we'll talk about that later. We have a PSA 6 Samitier that goes for 204, reason being pop 1 of 2, none higher. You do see like mid-grades of these and other stars in the set usually go for pretty cheap, but considering this is, highest grade at least for the time being, decent price. We have a couple Ansu Fatis. There will be another one above it. Even though Ansu Fati's down and these are probably comparably really good, I still do wonder. Part of me also wonders, I don't know why the gold out of 50 chrome goes for the same as the sapphire orange out of 50. I would have assumed that the sapphire orange would do a good premium over it, but that could just be the gold love that the hobby sort of has. No matter the case, I'd rather take a second-year Erling Haaland numbered than anything Ansu Fati at this point. Del Piero Score Italian League goes for 228 in a PSA 9. Then we have a couple rookie R9s. This is 94-95. This goes for 234. This goes for 234. Crazy to see a 2.5 grade difference go for the same price, but at the same time, BGS did label this a 95-96. I don't believe that's the case. It's also a little confusing because 94 and 95 both have pretty similar look to them in terms of R9 vote balls, so I kind of get it. But that's a huge discrepancy. We'll see a PSA 5 too here in a bit. This also is just an interesting row. You have basically all of the, not all of the, but a nice selection of unnumbered parallels within the 2014 Prism. Personally, I like the white, blue power. I honestly didn't really know the names. I don't know the order of how you say them, but I like that one the most. I think that looks pretty good. The red yellow looks a little abysmal to me, but this 2006 Luka Modric, I was really interested to see what this did because I don't think I've seen many of them. And, sort of pseudo rookie Modric. People like the early Modric pre-2008 where you have all the Euro stuff. So this is in that group. Navarrete, though, from what I remember, it's just sort of something I saw in a Discord and partially remembered, and I'm not sure if it's right, but I know the R9 one from, I think it's mid-90s, we'll say 94, 95. That one I do believe was a Central American release. I think that's what Navarrete is. I'm not too familiar. It might have been Venezuela, if I'm remembering correctly, but I am just entirely unsure. Nonetheless, this is a pretty decent-looking Modric, I would say. You would prefer sort of the league ones that are also released, and I also question why in Central America they'd be making Luka Modric stickers in 2006, so to me it just seems a little crazy, but I don't know. If anyone has more info on that, would love to hear it. There were some comps on it, but nothing all too in particular that we can talk about. 2017 Immaculate Pulisic. I'm pretty sure we've seen this go before, so we see it probably go again here. Another Pulisic in the next row, an auto and a PSA 9 going for 300. Felt like a pretty decent price. To me, this was also a pretty decent price, this Messi Refractor. Don't really know why, but this one did 300. The same night on eBay, one did 200 and 200 before that, and 200 before. They basically have just been consistently doing 200. So I'm unsure why that does 3, but it does. So take of it what you may. We'll keep it moving though. This PSA 6 seemed like a pretty decent price. We've seen sort of some of the PSA 8s dip close to 400. I think that was just an off-season thing. We'll look at a Messi graph later, but it seems like now that the season sort of kicked back up, so is the excitement for Messi and, sort of the talk around him as well. As far as everything else in the show, I feel like we've seen this try to sell a couple times. I could be wrong, but it just sort of sticks in my mind. 58 Ruiz Romero Puskás goes for 312 in a PSA 7. Pretty good grade on that. Luis Monti from 34 goes for 312. We also have a Roberto Carlos PSA 6 for 336. PSA 10 Cristiano Ronaldo goes for 350. The Messis from the same year tend to go for near about 1,000. Part of that also being that Ronaldo played in the 2004 Euro, being his first tournament, while Messi was in the 2006 World Cup for his first. So that's sort of a key differentiator. We have a foil fractured TAA. We have a SGC 10 of Angel Di Maria, a gold, going for $360. There were basically no gold comps to go off of for the treble Di Maria, and also having it in a 10 sort of makes it its own unique beast, so that makes sense. We have a PSA 5 going for $372, comparatively to the 4 that was running earlier. Trying to look back, I mean, $234, I guess, almost double the price for a +1 grade, which is, in my opinion, a bit much when we're talking about mid-grades, but seems like a decent sale there comparatively. A Totti Euro Flash and a PSA 8 goes for $372. A Robert Lewandowski PSA 9 goes for $384. Did look at the comps on that. Again, people want to call me a treble and Topps Chrome hater. I might be just a little bit that, but that doesn't mean I totally dismiss the sets and think they're nothing. I just, I'm not buying them right now, but that's just me. Looking back, though, basically this in a PSA 9 peaked out at $630, $500, $710. So late 2022, which, again, this is... And this is what I try to tell people when it comes to this, is that everything works in cycles. Everything works in cycles, especially in cards, especially in soccer cards. Everything is a cycle, right? So peak pricing on this seems to have been late 2022. And if you know anything about sports cards and soccer cards, late 2022, early 2023 seems to have sort of been about the bottom, maybe middle of 2023, but point being, these are peaking as everything else is at a bottom. So you're really, looking back on it, it seems like it was a really bad time to be doing this, because not only, one, are you missing out on potentially other things that might have gained in that time, you're also taking a massive hit, right? So this thing was $550, $630, $500, $710, and now, $384. Take away the buyer's premium, whatever that might be, you're probably walking home with close to $300, maybe a little more, and ultimately, that's not exactly where you want to be. In this row, we have a 2014 Luka Modric PSA 10 that goes for $384. Seems like a pretty fair price, not going to be something you can easily comp, pop one of two. But compared to what I see other PSA 10 out of 55s go for, it seems about right. This is the Neti from 1994. I've never seen, I guess the title says 93-94, maybe that's correct. They've changed what PSA put on there, but who knows. Nonetheless, haven't really seen this pop one of one, just one higher, goes for $384, so seems like a fun one. This 1958 Bremer Fakring with Vava and Pele goes for $420, which is crazy to me, especially given the sale that we'll see. So basically last night there were two to sell, a PSA 3 for $420 right here, and then a PSA 8 for $442. So if we're talking grading differential, that is about as steep as I've ever seen. Especially same grading company, I have no clue what happened there. I'm assuming, when we go back and look at some past sales, PSA 6 went for $348 here, so I guess that's a different picture. It's so hard to tell with the Bremer Fakrings because there's so many different in action, but basically, I don't know how you explain that. $420 and $442, I'm guessing one went a bit high, one went a bit low, and somehow you end up in between, but that's pretty crazy. Above that, we have a Puskás auto here on what is, I'd assume, like some sort of postcard or photo, I don't know, but typically these legend autos of players that are long gone tend to go for around this price, $400 to $500, even on some somewhat random items. So that's a really cool one to see there. And personally, while I might be more of a card collector than just an autograph collector, given the option between these two, I feel like I have to go with the Puskás. Although I will give Neymar this, he has a really good auto for modern day autos. There's a lot of people that just seemingly put no effort into autos, but at least Neymar tries, so I'll give him that. Nonetheless, it's sticker 2022. It's not really a big deal in my mind. That goes for $432, and a lot of it probably has to do with the PSA 10 grade. Gold Marcelo SGC 10 goes for $432 there, which is pretty decent price, presumably, and again, it's not going to be something you can really comp, so we'll just keep it going. This 1943 Zara Bruguera PSA 2 goes for $444. That was sort of what I was referencing earlier. We saw this one go for $444. The other one in a PSA 1 earlier went for $204, so some pretty decent sales. Looking back, there was a PSA 3 a couple weeks back that went for $216. Just between all of them, it seems like the PSA 3 was sort of the deal of the bunch, but hard to really tell. Also interesting how there's different color background and sort of different positions. So you have this purple one, you have this blue and orange one, you have this green one. So really cool to see that. Back in 2023, a PSA 1 did $80, while this PSA 2 does $444. To be fair, this one looks much, much better than the PSA 1 prior, so while there is a 1-point differential, I think it's a little bit more. Nonetheless, cool to see that go. We have a Lewandowski Gold PSA 10 Auto going for $480. This PSA 7 Monday Chromo Messi goes for $500 nearly, which isn't a crazy price. It's relatively what you'd expect, but I thought it was pretty impressive considering if you look at the card, I mean, I don't know what's going on there. If you look at the centering alone, that's probably going to get you an 8 or a 9 most of the time. So the idea that whatever this is only took it down a grade or two, that's something. Wouldn't be a 7 I'd buy, but at the end of the day, some people buy slabs, not cards, so, you know, a 7's a 7, I guess. Above that, Bremer Falkring PSA 2 with Pele in it goes for $480, pop one a 610 higher. This Lionel Messi Optic Gold Titans goes for $500. Don't see this all too often, not that I think people are really hunting it, but just interesting to see some gold Messi. Back in a certain time that would have went for a lot. We'll talk more about the Messi gold craze later, or just the gold craze that did occur in sort of 2022, 2023. This Neymar PSA 6 seems like a really good sale. Again, I mean, I've said it a lot lately. There's a lot of good sales. Maybe that's just sort of, you know, the market heating back up. In general, things seem to be heating back up, so I'm sure that helps. It's like most things, it's a culmination of a ton of different factors. But basically, looking here, I mean, this went for 25 more almost than the best offer on eBay recently that got snapped up. So, you know, auction prices going for more than best offers is always a good sign that at least things are tending in the right direction. But you know, looking down, basically, this was one that really stuck out. November, and I remember seeing this. I probably should have, you know, went after it a little bit. Both of these, actually, they're basically the same. So we have an SGC 9 that did 667. I mean, just a stunner. Personally, I do like the one that's a bit more of, you know, an action shot where it's full body and you don't have all this text on the front. I do find that to be a bit annoying. But this one for 667. This BGS 9.5 went for 725. I mean, a 9.5's incredibly hard. 725, and now, you know, PSA 6 does 500. That's just crazy in my opinion, but good to see Neymar get some respect. You know, I don't think that people really respect him the way that they should or probably will eventually. I think it's easy to dismiss him since, you know, all the focus has been on Messi or Ronaldo, but at some point in time, people will come to respect what is probably the third best player of the generation. There are other ones you could argue, but you can do that on your own time or in the comments down below. I'd recommend it. Here we have a 63 Swedish record of Eusebio going for 492 there. Pop one of 2, none higher, so pretty high grade on that one, and a nice smiling Eusebio, so always fun. PSA 9 Lionel Messi 2006 goes for 504. This TTT Franz Beckenbauer in a PSA 5 goes for 504. I was interested. I mean, I know we've seen some of these go, but yeah, basically this goes for a little bit more than the last one, 10-15% over the last one. This was also a surfboard slab. I always think that these big slabs sort of get a discount because people just don't want to deal with the hassle of sending it back to PSA and getting it in a smaller slab. They probably should have just done that the first time. I don't know why they don't. Above that, Messi and Ronaldo row here for you. So we have a PSA 8 of the matchups. We have a PSA 9 of the Cristiano Ronaldo League sticker from 2003, Merlin. And then we have a PSA 7 Lionel Messi Campy O. Personally, in this row, I really like that Ronaldo. I would probably take that one out of the bunch. I think this is one of the more standout of his 2003 items, just because it's, you know, being a sticker, being foil, sort of having the Manchester United kit, some nice text there. It just looks really good in my opinion. There are numbered items and all that jazz in 2003, but if we're just talking base items alone, I think that this is a great one personally. Also, I will say that PSA 7 price is pretty solid. We've seen 8s go for this at some times, so 7 going for that, combined with another 7 going for that is a fairly decent sign, I would say. Pele 65-66 goes for 576 in a PSA 8. We also have the Gazzetta that's sort of been taking a hit lately, which seems to be deservedly so, in my opinion, but it goes for 576. This Van der Sar PSA 10, you don't see that all too often. It goes for 630 in a PSA 10, which is a mighty fine price for a goalie that, you know, people don't really talk about, but at the end of the day, probably should, at least to a decent extent. This Oleg Blokhin, I'm pretty sure we've seen this sell, or try to sell a lot, but a PSA 9 goes for 700. I think I've seen this at least 3 or 4 times, and it's a pop one of 2, so that doesn't really make sense to me. 74 Abril Plassar Zico here, and a PSA 5 goes for 690. Looking back at sales history, there was only one sale prior. I was hoping to get something, but I mean, basically, the only thing to comp off of is 2023, where a authentic, I guess not altered, but would seem to be altered, has no borders. So I guess it's hand cut. So unsure why it got the authentic designation. Nonetheless, that went for 200 and looks much worse than what this PSA 5 goes for. So, I mean, on a relative basis, that definitely makes sense to me, and a fun one there. Kevin Keegan, PSA 9 goes for 690. We've seen some of these push near 1,000, maybe even over 1,000, but this one has taken a little bit of a hit. In my opinion, I mean, Kevin Keegan, not really a player people talk about, not really a player all too heavily collecting. Also, just doesn't really look that good, if I'm being honest. Like, this is a rough look for him, but that goes for 690. Prize Footballers, Erling Haaland out of 10 goes for 720. I just figured that was out of 10. It's out of 5. Apologies. Cristiano Ronaldo Upper Deck. I've always been impressed by how these have sort of held up. Now, to be fair, on the other end of the spectrum, a PSA 10 during the boom of this was probably like 10,000, 15,000. I mean, it was a lot of money. So, still down massively, but being an Upper Deck base card for Ronaldo, it's still a decent price, I would say, at 720. Above that, we have a Paulo Rossi PSA 8, along with a Pele sticker and a Jude Gold Wave. Definitely the highest I've seen a Paulo Rossi go for on here, but we've seen a decent amount of those sell from time to time. We have a Leaf out of 3. Messi Auto going for 900. We have a gold Bellingham going for 960 and a PSA 9. I find that interesting that the gold wave and the true gold went that similar in price. I don't know why that is, 960 to 750. I would have assumed a little bit more of a difference, but I guess not. 1955 Benji Garincha here goes for 1,080. As someone that I've talked about before, I'm looking for a Benji Garincha. That's not something I was pumped to see, but nonetheless, I mean, it seems about right. The last PSA 1 on PWCC with an eye appeal designation did 500, so 2 doing 1,000 isn't anything egregious, but yeah, I mean, looking back, there was a sale for 780 for a 2 last year. It's a pretty nice looking 2. So seems to be up a good bit, I would say. The 2 before that did 1,080 in February of last year, so a year apart, basically doing the same price. This, in my opinion, is a little less nice of a copy, but it is what it is. Beggars can't be choosers, so we'll keep it moving. Above that, 7.5 BGS Messi goes for 1,100. That one sort of made before fakes were a thing. When you look at BGS cert numbers, what I always tell people and what I say all the time on here is that if you don't know what you're looking for, basically, in terms of how to tell if it's fake or not, what you should just look at is if the BGS cert is under 13 million. If it's under 13 million, that was a time before BGS was just grading fakes like it's their job, which maybe it is. I don't know. But yeah, before that, I mean, you still do have to worry about like trimming and that type of stuff because that did exist. Now, the stakes were lower then, so it wasn't rampant, but it did exist. But yeah, I mean, 7.5 going for 1,100 of this, and it seemed initially like a decent price, but looking at sales history, I guess it's nothing crazy. A PSA 7 did recently do 1,300. I'd much rather have a PSA 7 than a BGS 7.5, if I'm being honest. Even if I know the 7.5 is real, BGS slabs also tend to create somewhat wavy stickers, which is something you have to look for. I don't know if these have been getting paid. I mean, presumably they are, but a lot of eBay fixed price listings have been going for the Estee. So we saw a fixed price down here, another fixed price, a best offer. So that's some really good signs, I would say, in terms of just buyers for it. Also, if you're into the weeds, you'll know that basically PSA isn't grading this at all and hasn't graded it for almost 2 years at this point. They got burned with some big Messi sticker fakes that ended up sort of getting exposed. They went back and corrected it, but have since started to grade it. So for that reason, I do think that the PSA prices are probably a little bit inflated because there is no supply. But at the same time, that's not bad at all for a BGS item. PSA 10 Batistuta here going for $12.30, just a crazy price, probably the highest Batistuta I've seen in any of these, I would say, without much of a doubt, but Pop 1 of 1's going to do that. Also, pretty sure that's rookie, right? I'm pretty sure 91 is. There's a lot of score stuff from that year, but a Merlin here. Topps UCL Xavi Simmons, 1 of 1, going for $1,300. We'll just scroll by that. 2014 Panini Prism World Cup Stars, or World Cup matchup, sorry. Blue Prism here out of 199 goes for $12.60 and a PSA 85. So I did look up comps on that. I know these have been performing pretty poorly, and I was interested in how poorly exactly and where we were before. So last PSA 8 did 1,000, so I guess, $200 for a half grade upgrade. people don't really care about PSA half grade upgrades, if we're being honest, or really in general. I think people don't care for half grades. But when we look back, all-time high was, what, here, 6,900 for a PSA 9? So, down quite a bit from there if we're looking at all-time peaks, and hasn't really stopped, if we're being honest. I mean, October of last year, PSA 9 did 2,100, and an 8.5 just did 13. So that's a pretty significant difference. I would say it's a little bit of a dip. These really had their day in the sun, but I do wonder, I mean, it always seems like people are debating Messi versus Ronaldo rather than just agreeing on both of them, which is more so my approach. But yeah, I mean, given that, I don't think that this is one that people are going to go crazy for, at least until a point in time where we sort of, agree that they're both great. Or maybe that never happens. A lot of people are trying to say that. So I don't know. Maybe the card's dead to everyone. Who knows? Next to it, we have a couple 2 Pele's from the Aquarella 1958 set. This one, SGC goes for $1,300. This one, PSA goes for $1,900 almost. This one's a little bit wider, I will say, but this one also has much better color. So depends what you're looking for. Also has an eye appeal, which is why it gets a higher price, but pretty decent sales, I would say, here for 2s. The Aquarella was and has been sort of going through a little bit of a drop, so to see this isn't anything too crazy. Pretty jam-packed row here, I would say. This PSA 8 Cristiano Ronaldo goes for $2,000. Went and took a look at that. We haven't seen many of these in high grade sell on PWCC, and basically, looking back, the last one did $2,200. Also did $2,050 before that. This is actually the same card as this when you look at the certs, so presumably got reran. Also, the picture looks much more different, so I really don't know why that happened. But there was also a comp for $2,100 in August that also got reran. This is actually my comp. I did buy this for $2,100 in August. Threw in what I thought was a lowball bid and got lucky enough to win. And also, I guess, lucky enough that this hasn't really dropped all too much since then. 2,000 here. I did look at it, and I mean, it's pretty diamond cut, I would say. A lot of these have centering issues, but not a lot of diamond cuts, I would say. I mean, this border is pretty chunky up here compared to the bottom, while the opposite holds true on the other side. You can see it on the back, too. I mean, definitely an 8 for a reason, but not the easiest to get in high grade, and unless you know someone knows how to print them. But we'll keep it moving. So this 1978 SGC2 Maradona does $2,000, which seems like a crazy price, and it kind of is. But at the same time, this is just a gorgeous copy. So in terms of color and sort of clarity, you barely ever see them like this. I mean, they're usually just butchered. This one looks so good in terms of color. Also has really thick borders, which is what you want to see. Some of these do have sort of some trimming issues, you would say, or something along those lines, but I have seen a decent amount where they're not this thick. So that's a thick border, a really nice color. I mean, just overall looks really good. The back, too, is almost pristine, I would say. What I was able to find is maybe like a little bit of paper loss up there, and you could probably find some other spots for it, but yeah, it's not that prevalent. So about as good of a 2 as you're going to ever find. And then to end out the row, we have a 62 Isabella Vedetas. I didn't even look at that before trying to pronounce it. Probably should have. But PSA 1 Eusebio goes for $2,500, which is, I didn't think a crazy price. I mean, typically these early 60s Eusebios that you barely ever see will do a couple thousand. I mean, that seems to be par for the course. I tried to look up comps. Couldn't find comps, so is what it is. To me, I think we saw another one like this a couple weeks back where it almost looks like sort of 40s, 50s Spain's designs. Really nice looking though, nonetheless, and does a decent price at $25.20, but not anything that's gonna blow your socks off. And then for the top 3, so interesting top 3, I would say 2 Messis and then a Lewandowski, which you almost never expect a Lewandowski in the top 3, but alas, here we are. This is a 1-of-1 match ball from Merlin that goes for $28.80. In my opinion, I don't understand this stuff at all, but obviously there are high-end collectors with, a lot of money that want to collect certain players and love 1-of-1s and all that jazz. It does have a nice, cool little ball in the patch and all that stuff, but yeah, I mean, grail prices for what is a random year Lewandowski 1-of-1 doesn't make a lot of sense to me, but as long as it helps one person out there sort of fill the void in their collection or heart, I guess that's all that matters, right? So that goes for $3,000. Next to it, we have, I mean, in my opinion, obviously it's $800 more, but I'd take this every single day of the week over that Lewandowski. An out of 5 field level select 2017 for Messi. This is actually a really low price when we go back and sort of look at how it's done throughout history, but like all things, it had its boom cycle. Again, if you weren't there for it, this was quite the time in soccer. So this PSA 9 select field level gold Messi out of 10 went for 55,000 on Golden in 2022. Again, like I said, everything works in cycles. After things sort of peaked in 2021, in 2022, that was the year of the gold craze, where people were just saying, all right, no one wants base, everyone wants gold. People are going to pay up for gold. And by golly, they did. I mean, 55,000 for that is just insane. 15,000 for this tie-dye. We did actually see this out of 5 go before in 2022 for 14,000. So, a decent drop from there at nearly 4,000 at this point in time. And yeah, we can keep going, but basically it is pretty low on this list, which sort of shows where the low-numbered market for Messi Select 2017 is. All in all, I think this is a pretty cheap price, at least comparatively. Typically, what I think in my head is that if you are going from Messi or Ronaldo to a lesser player, you should almost do 10% of the price, or maybe even less. And I think a lot of players would have an out of 5 field level select sell for more than, say, 300. I think a lot of players would. And I think that tells me that there's a lot of people that want to, get involved with this set, but maybe not a lot of people that want to get involved with the Messi of this set for 4,000, which always sort of then brings in questions of, well, what does that mean? And, you got to figure that stuff out on your own and sort of debate that internally. But I mean, comparatively to what I would think lesser players would do, I actually don't think that that's a crazy price. And then we finish off with the PSA 10 here of a 2004 Mega Cracks Messi, the white version of the team set release, where there's a few different ones within it. This is actually a pretty good sale. We had seen some of these sort of dip, and I was wondering if that was more of a sign of things to come, but apparently not. So throughout the last year, you sort of saw the peak here in the summer where he moved to the MLS. MLS season's going on, stayed pretty steady, and then MLS season ended, went down quite a bit, and I was wondering, down here at 2,500, are we going to go to 2, 1.5? Where are we going? Then we went basically right back up. So this has been lingering between 3 to 4, and this one goes for 4, so sort of on the high side, and maybe that's attributed to Messi and Inter Miami being back in the spotlight being talked about. I don't know. Maybe that's just more of a total market type of thing. Up for interpretation, but pretty strong sale there and a really good week overall. Ton of fun stuff in here. Sadly, wasn't able to get myself anything, at least in this section, but had fun nonetheless with it. Looking at the next week, auction number 111, and sort of scrolling through, this is quite a big one. We have a Vecchi PSA 4 Garrincha. I have it favorited. I'm probably not buying this, to be honest, but I just want to see. We have a 44 here of Leonidas. We have a 27 Miazza from the Lorati and a PSA 2. Which is already at 9,000, which I guess if we include BP would almost be 11, which is pretty crazy. We have a really high grade here of Platini. I think I looked at the back and it looked a little iffy, but like all of them. We have a gold Ronaldo treble. We have a Messi Ronaldo signed item. Ton of fun stuff. A lot of pretty decent cards and already some pretty decent prices, I would say, relatively speaking. PSA 2 of the VOB down here. Yellow Name Eusebio, St. Giorgio Pele. Ton of fun stuff. So looking forward to it, and hopefully you are too. If you enjoyed the video, of course, as always, make sure to leave a like. I'd appreciate it greatly. If you want to see more videos like this as soon as they go live, make sure to subscribe. Also, would love to hear your thoughts on any of the items that you saw in this auction, maybe ones that you sold, bought, or just were interested in general. Always fun to chat. And yeah, with that said, hopefully you have a wonderful day, and peace.